the student body invited Sharif to do a week-long conference on how to create dialogue and community. And um, Sharif brought a concept called World Cafe seminar to Evergreen back in probably the late 1996, 97, 98, right
I,
in there.
I keep forgetting I go that far back. Yeah.
Yeah. And so maybe right around 99, 2000 really is when you came to campus. And then so a group of us connected with Sharif, and we've continued to invite you back throughout the years to do workshops. And I know you often will come to campus in person, and we really appreciate that the work that you've done, both coming into our programs to talk about your work and also hosting our students in ILCs as interns and editors on manuscripts. And then the work that you do with the Commonway Institute, your background and training in your early years as a young person growing up as an activist and then as a lawyer, and then moving towards social shaping and social changing um, capacities and thinking about the individual in the context of giant social change. And so there's two works that all of your works and even your workbooks I find really useful. And I love that you've written theoretical pieces and political pieces, as well as fiction, in order to tell the stories of a world that's in transition and change. But there's two books that personally I found really useful for myself and for students. And the first is one of your early books. It's a slim little book called The Power of One, one of the best books on leadership I've ever used. It's really digestible and readable and provocative for how to take responsibility in one's life and for yourself and within social systems that we don't always have. Um, we don't always have the choice of how other people or how systems shape and are shaped and changed, but we do have a sense of our own power and autonomy and leadership. How do we become leaders? The Power of One. Love that book. And then the other book that has been so useful for all of us is your book, Creating a World That Works for All, and just the concept of what is the problem, how do we understand the historic, cultural, social roots, and also what are the solutions. And so this concept in chapter, and where are we going next? So this concept of the story, what are the stories that break the world and what are the stories that shape the world? Who are the breakers? Who are the makers? Who are the changers? And how do we think about the the narratives or the roles that we take on and define? And so that chapter 5 is kind of an anthem for me and for some of our Evergreen students through the years. And so we are using your text, the power of one. I think it's a hot selling text. It's had a lot of awards and recognition. And we've used it for a number of years, and it just keeps being relevant in so many ways for so many people. So we invited you here today with our Cornerstone program to help us build um, context around um, creating a world that works for all. That's such a provocative question. And what are the stories that um, stop us from achieving our collective and personal potentials, and what are the stories that affirm and support us, and how do we make the change to create the world that we want to be part of, creating a world that works for all. That's just such a powerful concept and not easy. It's a difficult question to address when it looks like people are creating a world that is distressing all of us, especially when we're bringing in all these different technologies and um, the elements of the breaker culture that tends to control and marginalize others as profit, greed, and control. All right.
Again, I want to talk about first of all, me and my what I call my lineage, because a lot of times people, you know, you launch into something, you start talking about it, you're going somewhere with it, but I have a question that says, who are you to be saying these things, and what is the context in which you are saying these things? Then I want to spend a bit of time talking about the problem, not the surface level problems that people are dealing with out on the streets nowadays, but the things that are lying behind that. And then I want to talk about how we get to and through those issues. And that's going to be just about all the time I've got. Um, and so I want to share with you um, a way of looking at who am I, and that is what I call my lineage of societal transformation. And for most of these folks, you know who they are, um, and except for the first one, um, and that is John Woolman. Or you may know who he is. If you are a Quaker, you probably know who he is. In the 1700s, he was a regular guy and had some job on a farm. And at that time, you may not know that Quakers owned slaves. They didn't see any problem, particular problem with the concept or the institution of slavery or or actually owning slaves. He thought that this was wrong, and he also thought it was against the basic teachings of the Bible. And he went around to different farms, different Quaker farms, and talked to them one by one. He just traveled all around what was our little country then, which was New York, Pennsylvania, down into Delaware, etc. And he just talked to people and said, I think this is wrong. I think you should think the same thing. And over the course of 10, 15 years or so, as a matter of doctrine, uh, Quakers stopped owning slaves and stopped agreeing with the institution of slavery. And this very quiet, very unassuming, he wasn't grandstanding, he wasn't doing anything, um, the internet of his day. But what he did was effective, and that's the kind of effectiveness that we need, I believe. So that's why I like to think of him as part of my lineage of societal transformation. Another person is Mahatma Gandhi. Um, again, how do you stop an empire machine in mid tracks? And how do you do it without an army? And how do you do it by articulating your spiritual and social and practical values? The same is true with regard to Martin Luther King Jr. Um, how do you get people? I mean, yeah, all of us are reading the same books, but we're getting very different interpretations from them. And so, how do you get that as a matter of your principles. And May, I'm going to get your hand in a second. Um, Another um, of the people in my lineage is Václav Havel. How do you stop the second largest superpower in the world without firing a single shot? What is the process by which you do that? Havel should be studied in every university, every college, the most, I think, prolific and effective political writer since Thomas Jefferson. And we don't even know who he is, we don't talk about him, etc. We keep doing things that are completely ineffective, that do absolutely nothing to change anything, and think that we're doing something. We put out all these untested, untried ideas, and we ignore the things that worked. And there has to be some reason why we're doing that. And we may get to that in a minute. And then finally, in my lineage of societal transformation, is Nelson Mandela. Um, and the idea that he could spend decades in prison and in solitary confinement, and on the day he's released, he walks out smiling. And that smile never wavered as he built a society. He could have built a Black society. What he built was the rainbow society, that everybody in the society had to have a place. Um, and so that's the pattern that I try to live with and I try to live up to. And so, May, you got a question in there.
It's more of an observation because behind many of the figures that you stated also came people who were able to organize and be able to prop them up as kind of figureheads of what they were speaking for. Because behind every leader is thousands of people you have never heard of who kind of do the dirty work, who have to maneuver through the careful diplomacy of trying to do things peacefully. And even then, it's I've discovered kind of over time that doing things peacefully and civilly is it's good for like public relations, but you do need like a kind of like actual, I guess the best way I can describe it is a threat behind it. I there's a fun fact about Nelson Mandela. Do you want to know why he was in prison in the first place?
I think I do, but go ahead.
Nelson Mandela was actually part of a guerrilla group in the 1960s that attempted to kind of I forgot the exact details, but it involved a bomb in some way. There's a lot more nuance when it comes to making change and stuff like that. And I just want to acknowledge that behind the figures that you describe is a lot more nuance and I guess sort of quote unquote grayness to things. Change is inherently a difficult thing to do. People are going to fight you back at everything and it always gets ugly. But at the end of the day, you have to do it. You have to do it because at the end of the day, it's adapt to the new world or fall behind.
Um, I'm not going to disagree with you. What am I going to do? Um, I'm going to go to the next segment um, because it will explain more of what I see as the problem. I want to acknowledge what you are saying. I want to acknowledge it with my own life. My first step in activism was when I was 11 years old, which was couple of years ago. Um, and this was in Camden, New Jersey. And this was, uh, I was deeply affected by Malcolm X. Um, I was part of what eventually got called the Black Power movement. When I got involved, we didn't even have a name for what we were doing. And this notion um, of Black Power, and especially the international aspects of Black Power, um, Kwame Nkrumah, Robert Mugabe, lots and lots of other folks I was deeply affected by them. Um, and I also realized that a large part of my life force was around pain and was around frustration, was around anger. My organization had a bomb factory up on the third floor of the building we were in, right above the daycare center. Uh, and uh, I thought that that was absolutely necessary. And my later time at the Black Panther Party um, uh, reinforced that. And I now see that those behaviors were part of the pathology that I now am trying to get us all away from. Because what we were trying to do was trade pathologies. Hang on for a second. And that was true, not from a point of view of not from a theoretical point of view, but from the point of view of a lot of my friends who died holding that point of view, who clashed with people who were holding just the coin flip side of that same point of view. And that's going to get us into the second part of what I need to what I'm going to say today. And that has to do with what is the problem. So I'm going to go through that now, and then I'll stop again and we'll see. I see that there's someone else on the call now, and so we'll see who's got what questions at what time. Um, so let me um, uh, go back to my slides here, and I got to push the right button. So, what is the problem? And the problem is different from and much larger than what we think. The problem is not just climate change. It's not racism. It's not COVID. It's not politics or any of that stuff. The problem, so I got my degree in psychology from Clark University. And at that time, the idea of psychology was rat psychology. And we did an experiment that you probably can't do nowadays. You put two rats in a cage, you make you put in enough food and water and make the cage large enough, the two rats will cohabit with each other. They will largely ignore each other while they're testing out the cage. Then we would send a mild electric shock, not mild to the rats, through the bars of the cage, through the metal floor of the cage. Um, they will, when you send the electric shock through the floor, they immediately will attack each other because what they are experiencing is I'm in pain and there's a rat. That rat must be causing my pain in some way. Make one of the rats white and one of the rats black, and when you see that attack happen, you say, "Oh, white rats and black rats can't get along with each other." Um, when you stop making them rats in a cage and you start making them human beings out in the street, experiencing the same pain, experiencing a pain that they have not identified, they then start attacking each other. So back when I was 11 years old, there's a guy named Malcolm X who said, "You're in pain, and that pain is caused by the white race, by the white power structure, and that pain is and in order for you to get out of that pain, you have got to fight and attack." And the question is, um, how can we get beyond that? Now, in this, we're not smarter than the rats because we keep identifying other beings, other human beings, as the cause of our pain. When the pain goes deep enough and so deep that we can't seem to get beyond it. So we're being pushed and pulled into fundamental change, pushed by all of the stuff, by the electrical shock that's going through the floor of every single person's cage in this society and in many other societies. And we're being pulled by the vision of we can do better than this. We can do greater than this. So we look at the surface level problems, global climate change, the debacle around George Floyd, COVID, and we can name an awful lot more, while we're ignoring the stuff that's lying underneath and floating the iceberg, the stuff that I call on page 30 the mess, in creating a world that works for all. So the mess is all the stuff that's on that page plus more. Holes in the ozone layer, political corruption, homelessness, emotional distress, child slave labor, industrial pollution, suicide, weapons of mass destruction, mental disorders in children, terrorism, unsustainability, militarization of outer space, on and on and on. This is the one, if I leave, if you get nothing else from what I'm saying today, this is not 50 problems. This is one problem with 50 presenting symptoms. And that one problem is consciousness, how we think, how we think and how we act. We've been trying to change and ignore the symptoms. We've been trying to analyze the symptoms. We've been trying to address the symptoms. And we keep doing that rather than address the disease. While the problem is consciousness, the solution is consciousness. Once we see that, once we recognize that, we will see, and this is what my premise is in Birthing the Nation of Gaia, we will see that we are in, as Martin Luther King said, the creative turmoil of a birth. We're about to birth a brand new society that has a whole new set of principles. Um, so, and we're about to birth a society where the operating program of the entire society is creating a world that works for all. So our challenge is, can we do this? And how fast we can do this. Um, if we don't, so we've got two choices. Once we have entered the chrysalis, caterpillar is dissolving all around it. We can see the caterpillar in dissolving. The United States government is dissolving right in front of us. It has to dissolve in order to give way to the butterfly. Now, we can protest it. We can prop up the caterpillar. We can say, let's get ourselves back together here. Um, or or we can say, what is the nature of the society that comes in next? Um, and I think that well, if we don't do that, that's okay. We're going to create this new society. I just hope we do it with humans, um, as opposed to what happens if we continue in the ways that we're continuing now. Okay, so that was the next section. And I'm going to pause for a second. I see that we now have another um, uh, participant. Um, I'm going to I'm sorry, one more slide here. And this is our good old Uncle Albert. Albert Einstein. He says, no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. Now, he said this, what, 70 years ago, maybe longer than that. And we've got this poster on our walls. We know that no problem can be solved from the same level of consciousness that created it. And we keep trying to solve our problems with the same level of consciousness that created it. And we keep being disappointed by the fact that nothing changes. So I am an advocate that it's time for us to get smart.
May, did you have a question earlier that you wanted to ask?
It got answered.
Yeah, good. And
Okay.
I'm curious what your question was, just to hold space for it. And I'm sure it was answered, so just
Oh, do you want me to speak?
yeah, just in a nutshell, just to hold space for it.
It was more of a case of just like elaborations on how approaching stuff with the mindset of revenge and getting even kind of just continues the same problems. But that got answered in a more eloquent way than I ever could.
Yeah, that was a really, really brilliant discussion, Sharif, and put the whole
Hey,
social
don't
context.
brilliant. Don't make me
I
start
know, but
blushing
this is,
here, right?
these 9 books that you have out there that are revolutionary and world shaping. I want to advocate for this the concepts that you're sharing, and appreciate how you synthesize these really difficult challenges and give us the opportunity to dig deep into who we are as individuals and what we can bring to the issues that we face. So we're not feeling distracted, overwhelmed, disempowered, because I think we they do shock us. Every day shocks us with news headlines like the rats in the cage. We're being shocked and traumatized all the time. And even with our best intentions, we can feel like we're powerless or rudderless, or don't our lives can't get traction. So what you're allowing us to do is think about where we fit into that, how the individual and the collective can come together and overcome those shock values.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
So number one, thank you for saying that. Number two, let's see if we can get a little bit more balance in here. I recognize that we have to stop at some point in time. I'm trying to get a few more concepts at least on the table for us to talk about. And to do that, we're going to go back to here and look at how we are out of balance and what balance actually means. So we're facing destruction, and we're facing destruction from our story. Now, this is, again, if you read Creating a World That Works for All, I talk about the story of Rabbit Island and how by just an innocuous story, maximum food, maximum sex, look out for predators. When you change the environment where there are no predators, maximum food and maximum sex turns into a story of destruction. The turn of the last century, the 1900s, people were cutting down old growth timber. To cut down old growth timber, it took 20 men plus 20 mules a week to cut down one tree. The problem isn't cutting down those trees, they reproduce themselves. The problem is when you super size the machinery that does that, where you can cut down an old growth tree, cut down and process an old growth tree in an hour. That's the problem. The problem is our story does not keep up with our abilities and our potential. The problem is the story. Our current story is let's kill this planet. Let's go ahead and finish killing this one, and then we'll all going to move to Mars, and then we'll kill that one. In fact, before we even get there, let's start killing it. Let's start putting tons and tons of trash on Mars. Right now, there's 15,000 tons of trash on the planet that we put there already. This is similar to the story that got Europeans in this continent and every other continent. We can grow forever. We can just keep doing what we're doing, and it won't have any effect on us. A guy named by the name of Stafford Beers said, "The purpose of a system is what it does, not what it says it does." And so the purpose of our system right now is let's turn all the resources on earth into money, and then I'll collect all the money. We've got to dump that story. Some of us have been trying to dump the story, but not profoundly enough. There's another similar story. Let's kill this planet slower. That's the sustainability model. The elements of the slow kill plan. Let's do everything we can to save the earth, as long as it doesn't cost too much, as long as we don't have to change ourselves, as long as we don't have to change our lifestyles too much. Let's do all we can to save the earth, so long as we don't have to question our basic attitudes and assumptions about work, about money, or about anything else. Let's save the earth as long as I don't have to think about it too much. This guy said, "I sit on a man's back, choking him and making him carry me, and yet assure myself and others that I am very sorry for him and wish to ease his lot by any means possible, except getting off his back." We have to begin the process of getting off the back of the earth. We have to take our rightful place as as a participant in the earth, but not on top of it, not even in a leadership capacity. They're beings that are far smarter than we are and act in a much more appropriate ways than we ever have. And it's time that for us to start listening to them. So we need to actually figure out what rethinking consciousness actually means. Um, so we have to start rethinking consciousness. And I love this image. It's, we have been thinking with our heads, and that's one of the organs that's available to us. When you only think with your head, you wind up in a place you don't want to be. We need to start thinking with our heads and hearts in communion with each other. Consciousness is not located in your brain. Consciousness is not an accident of brain activity. Consciousness is a receiving organ. It's like a radio that's picking up something, picking up consciousness. So this brain-heart connection is the receiver for consciousness. This consciousness is not limited to humans, and this is where all of my work has been for the past few years. And I'd love to share it with you, but I'm not going to do it in 10 minutes. One of the things that I've come to understand, um, I forget, a number of scientists have been saying that the human brain is the most complex instrument in the entire universe. And this is so arrogant. It is the 21st century version of manifest destiny. Um, this is the brain of a human being. This is the brain of a dolphin, same size being. It's way bigger than ours. It's way more dense than ours. It's way more complex than ours. We have 3 lobes in our brains. They have 4. We can't even begin to test their intelligence. We're not smart enough. This is like your dog trying to test your intelligence. Um, there are elder beings on our planet. Um, the cetaceans, the whales and dolphins, the elephants, the octopuses. It's time for us to get over our arrogance, get over our stuffing of ourselves, and start asking more questions. If we ask questions, we'll get answers. If we're too um, arrogant to ask the questions, then we will wind up not being able to move forward on any of this stuff. So we're about to give birth. We're about to awaken something, and we're about to awaken something that I'm calling holonic consciousness, planetary consciousness. If, though, we are in denial that we're even pregnant, we're going to make a number of very, very bad decisions. 2 examples, the Ugandan mother and the fetal scientist. One is real and the other one is a metaphor. The real one is the woman in Uganda who some years ago was having a baby, and she had access to some health care, so things went well. She had her baby, wrapped it up in a blanket, took it home, Um, a week later, she starts experiencing um, massive stomach problems, massive pain. Husband rushes her back to the hospital. The first thing they ask her is, "Are you pregnant?" And she says, "I had a baby in this hospital last week." So they then start doing to her what you should never do to a pregnant woman. Um, Nerve blocking, the drugs that she shouldn't be taking, etc. Um, they're about to cut her open to find out what's going on, and out pops another baby. She is one of the rare women who had two wombs. Her husband got her pregnant in both of them a week apart, and she had two babies, not twins, two complete births, and they almost killed the mother and the child by acting as though she were not pregnant. This has happened before. A woman who was not pregnant was had a boyfriend. She's having sex with the boyfriend and keeping very strict written records of her menstrual cycle because she didn't want to get pregnant. And she gets amazing pain in her stomach, and goes to the doctor, and um, uh, they ask, "Are you pregnant?" She says, "No, I just had a period a week ago." So they do to her, which you should never do to a pregnant woman, um, all the stuff, the nerve blocking, the drugs, and everything else, all that stuff threw her into a coma. And while she's in the coma, out pops a baby. She had two wombs, and she was tracking her menstrual cycle only in one of them. Other one had a baby in it. She stays in the coma for a week. She comes out, and they say, "You're back from your coma. You were in a coma for a week, and here's your baby." And she's thinking, "Wow, I must have been in that coma for a really long time." Um, and we, all of us, act like we're not pregnant. We are doing things to each other that we should not be doing if we recognized that we're doing something together and we should be cooperating with each other, not trying to slice, dice, and drug ourselves. Our challenge is, can we get past um, this moment? Okay. Um, what are the five things? Now, there's probably 25 things that we need to be focusing on. I do a whole series on what I call the 12 global challenges. 12 global challenges are really important, but I want to talk about something else right now. Yeah, it's in my book, Birthing the Nation of Gaia. I call it the five beyonds. Um, we have a challenge, and this is what our baby is going to look like. Number one, beyond geography. So Gaia is going to be the planetary nation. It's going to be the nation of humans where there's just one nation. We have the technology to do that. Um, Number two, beyond exclusivity, beyond the notion that my piece of dirt is different from your piece of dirt, and I'm going to get weapons to defend my piece of dirt from your piece of dirt. I hope that sounds as ridiculous as I hope you see it as ridiculous as it sounds. The notion of us keeping ourselves away from each other is way old thinking. First time I drove through Europe, I was driving from Italy, I guess. And when I got to the border, or Germany, um, and I got to the border of France, stop. People with guns said, "Were show me your passport. What are you bringing in? Who's allowing you in here? Do you have the right visas, etc." And then 10 years later, I hit that same border at about 60 miles an hour. Nobody asked me anything because the questions are irrelevant once you let go of this notion of exclusivity. Number three, um, getting beyond violence. That we don't need to be violent with each other in order to experience peace and security. Number four, getting beyond religiosity. We can be deeply spiritual people. I consider myself to be a deeply spiritual person, but I don't have any particular religion I want to um, lay on you. This is, what your spiritual beliefs are. They're all written right here, and that's all that you need. And if you don't have access to this, you need to get access to this. And then five is getting beyond money, that all of us together can live an amazingly abundant life. But we can't do that when I'm holding on to more resources than I could ever, ever, ever use in order to keep it away from somebody else. Um, so that is not an American game plan. It's not a Western game plan. It has to turn into a human game plan of how we are going to be on this planet for the next 100 years or more. So in Birthing the Nation of Gaia, I put 1,000-year vision of what we should be doing. And I keep waiting for someone to push back to say, no, I don't think we should be doing things that way. I think we should be doing something this way. And then, okay, I'll agree with you. I'll change it. Or you'll agree with me, you'll change yours. But we need to have that as a conversation. And right now, we're not engaging in conversations. We're engaging in um, talk fights. And unfortunately, they're becoming more than talk fights. They're getting bullets involved with them. And the bottom line is we need to be um, creating something that all of us, and I mean all of us, I don't mean all humans, I mean all living beings can work toward at the same time. And I will take questions, comments, thoughts, opinions, applause. um, oh, okay. So you got hands flying everywhere here. Yes,
Have you heard of the book A New Earth by Eckhart Tolle?
I've heard of it. I haven't read it.
It describes a lot of kind of like a similar thing, but on a more like spiritual, like if you want to change the world, you first have to like kind of like change yourself kind of thing of kind of letting go of like those like that floor shock feeling and realizing when your brain is just wanting to lash out and deliberately making the choice to sit as one with the world around you instead of trying to be on top of it.
Um, number one, yes. Number two, um, you may want to take some of your applause back in a second. I don't know. Um, but I don't know if you are familiar with what's his name? Daniel Schmachtenberger. That's really his name. Um, he is probably the most preeminent systems thinker that we have in our society, and I what dealing with him is a bit much. Look up his and Schmachtenberger is spelled Schmachtenberger. Um, look up his YouTube offerings and pick the shortest one you can find. Okay, and that'll give you a taste of Schmachtenberger. Um, and he and I were talking, and I was giving him um, what I usually talk about in terms of the metamorphosis of humanity traces the metamorphosis of the caterpillar to the butterfly. And he says, not so fast. He said, um, how a being undergoes metamorphosis depends on what the being has to do. He said that the caterpillar, to get its DNA from Portland, Oregon to Michoacan, Mexico, has to sprout wings because caterpillars aren't going to walk to Mexico. You got 3 months to get there. You better be flying. Um, but so he said, human beings undergo metamorphosis from the time when you're like 3 or 4 months old and you're drinking milk to 2 years old and you're eating solid food. And he said the metamorphosis is really subtle. It's like the shape of your head has to change. You've got to develop, the lower jaw. You've got to develop the muscles in the face. So a kid at 2 years old looks different than a kid at 3 months old. But that's a type of metamorphosis. And he was absolutely right. And so we need to think about what is it that we are metamorphosing from, and what is it that we're metamorphosing to, and what are the elements that help us to do that metamorphosis. Um, so when we start looking at where we have to go, which is a society without violence, a society without poverty, a society without um, elitist differences, we need enzymes inside of our chrysalis to change the shape of our society. And the enzymes that we need is what I call the transformational universal metamorphic pathogen inside the chrysalis. Or, in other words, Trump.
Ugh.
Now,
Actually flinched at that.
I know, me too.
now, this is both funny and serious. That when you're in the middle of a birth, it is not pretty. There's nothing pretty about birth. Okay. I delivered my first daughter. Um, they don't even tell you what it smells like. Okay. They don't tell you what it sounds like. It is a mess and it's painful and it is it's yucky. My wife had she was only in labor for a couple of hours. That was, or maybe less than that. Um, My upstairs neighbor had a baby a year ago, 48 hours in labor. I mean, after a while, you say, look, I'm done. Let somebody else finish this. Um, but at the second that baby is born, you forget all the other stuff. It's all the stuff that we're going through now as we're transforming our society. We're focused on the transformation because we're not focused on the baby. Once you start focusing on the baby, it's like, okay, this stuff has to change. It all has to change. And we're going to make it change. Um, and I'll take that down so that
Thank you.
the I'll take you back to I still find it difficult to say this, but nearly 6 decades ago, when I was first politically active and thinking, what is it that's going to actually change the
And
society? Um,
and Sharif, was that in Camden, New Jersey when you were
yeah,
growing up?
yeah, Camden and Philly, yeah.
Yeah.
And um, uh, we were asking the question of how are we going to get this to get our society to change? And we were having problems. Um, and how do you get the society to change and not just line up everybody and line up all of us and blow us away? And the answer is you get it to change from changing inside. You get to change this as an internal process. And it's changing. It ain't pretty by a long shot, but it will be working. 20 years, 30 years from now, you'll wonder where the American empire went, the empire that says we can do anything we want in the world whenever we want to do it, and if you don't like it, we'll just come and take you over. Um, that kind of arrogance will go away, and it can't go fast enough for me. Any other questions or comments or thoughts?
Yeah, we do. I'm just thinking of that from your sort of your emergence in, I mean, there was a lot of really intense social justice, um, and police brutality and violence in the community that you grew up in, a lot of push, smackdown and push down and pushback that you grew up. So that was a very intense um chrysalis or catalyst to come out of, and then the idea of going on to law school and then finding a way to do this work through community dialogue, through the power of one, sort of awakening individuals' personal role. Um, and your book, The Power of One, that we started using in 99, 2000 here at Evergreen. And then when did Creating a World That Works for All come out? Was that 2003?
No, it was actually 1999.
Okay, so that came out in 99 as well. So
And
anyway, by the time you came to Evergreen, you were already then working with Victor uh, Havel, and you had done, worked, done that thinking around the transformation of society in South Africa with Nelson Mandela, and some of your the lineage of leaders that you worked with and have come from. And so it's really, really hard to think about the leaders, the violent leaders who are creating disruptions in Eastern Europe, or the violent leaders that are creating disruptions in the Middle East. I'm trying to leave this a little bit vague so as not to be too overtly political. But and the sort of the violence that America is projecting against our will. And it's not just Trump, it's a whole series of dominoes that have been leading up to this moment when a president was selected instead of elected, when Reagan came in. I mean, and you have seen this transition of society to this point. And I hate giving a particular leader who's so offensive to so many or so disruptive of honest honesty and values of integrity and create, it's doing the opposite of creating a world for all, creating a world only for me and myself and I. It's the exact opposite of what you're talking about. So I'm just really interested in seeing how you weave that lineage of powerful leaders and the lineages of those who've brought us here generously. I can look at my own emergence. I think each of us have heroes that we come from, people that have supported us, that have brought us to this moment so we can awaken into our personal power and come into our work in the world. So I'm curious about how you weave that lineage of healers, helpers, makers, shapers, and contrast to this disruptive, associative, pathological culture of violence, greed, and colonialism. And I just want to know a little bit more about how you rest with that.
When I was 16 years old, um, well, we formed an organization called the Black People's Unity Movement in Camden, New Jersey, and anything that said black was a threat to the status quo. And in Camden, they decided that they were just going to exterminate the leadership of the organization, and the part of the leadership was me. So when my turn came, it was during a demonstration. I got separated. All of the leaders actually had bodyguards, and having a bodyguard at 16 years old was like seemed normal at the time. Um, and I got separated from my bodyguard, and the cops did everything they could do to make sure that I was going to wind up dead. Um, Knocked me out, threw me in the back of, I mean, literally threw me in the back of a paddy wagon. And my bodyguard knocked two cops over and jumped in the back of the paddy wagon with me, which is why I got to the hospital alive. Paralyzed from my neck down for 3 days. Lots of time to stare at the ceiling and wonder, what the hell am I doing here? Um, I am very, very glad and I'm very thankful for the fact that my um, ability to walk returned, ability to move my hands returned. I know of lots and lots of my friends and associates who did not make it, who didn't make it because they ran up against the same machine and it ground them up a different way. Um, I later, I when I later became a gun owner and was really into keeping enough ammunition handy, etc. And I realized something, and I wrote about it. I can't. It's in one of the books, and um, I said the same weapon that you will use against your enemy will be the same weapon that you eventually use against your friends and yourself. So maybe that weapon should be love. Um, this is how I made my transformation. Believe it or not, Martin Luther King was a gun owner at one point in time. Um, and he then started to realize that the nature of the society that you want to create is based on the nature of the society that you are willing to use, the tools you are willing to use to make that society. And I'm not willing to use guns and weapons to do that, because all that means is that you're going to line up your friends and use those weapons against them. Back during uh, the Iranian student protest in this country, back when there were Iranian students in this country, um, I got to know one of the leaders, Bakran Nahidian, and he was very um, uh, militant and um, very much willing to die for what he believed. And he did die for what he believed. But the people who killed him were the people who were, he thought what he was working for and with. Um, the, um, the Iranian Revolution, which went completely berserk and just started killing everybody. The same way revolutions have a tendency to do.
Well, the French Revolution did the same thing. Once they picked off one side, then they started imploding and gutting their own internal leadership. And so if people had slightly nuanced differences, it
Yep,
was very, very difficult.
yep. And you name it, from Stalin, Pol Pot, Mao, and therefore your your tools should be love, should be compassion, should be um, holding to your vision, articulating your vision. And it's really distressing for me to watch how we don't do that. How how all we have tens of millions of people coming out in this society saying we want something else. And I've been saying, what? What else do you want? If you can't articulate it, you don't want it very much. And well, we want no kings. Okay, so if King Charles tries to come over here, we will kick him out. Actually, we won't, because he's a pretty cool guy. Um, so no kings doesn't articulate what you want. Saying no thing, I want an anti-capitalist, anti-racist, anti-colonialist, anti-this. Okay, you just gave me a whole list of what you don't want. Now, what do you want? What is it that's moving your heart to act? Um, and if Trump is doing that, then that means nothing is doing it. If your desire for money is moving you, then that means you don't have a vision. It's okay to say that. You should then get one. I've got several of them I'm willing to share with you, from birthing the nation of Gaia to creating a world that works for all and everything in the middle. Okay.
Power
Uh,
of one.
yeah. And our challenge is um, can you see it? It's sitting right in front of you. This book has been in front of you for 30 years. Okay. Um, this one has been in front of you for 30 months. um, is it possible for us to actually pause and say, or say exactly what we want and exactly when we want it? And when we start saying that, we may be seeing that what we want isn't what is going to happen in our future. So, May, I don't know if I talked over uh,
Question.
your moment there.
No, you immediately answered the question.
But go ahead and let's give space to the question so we can hear it.
Uh, a lot of the cases in terms of like the outcome of like revolutionary movements, it's usually the most vicious faction that ends up on top once the guns get turned at each other.
A really good movie. I hate to say that it's a good movie because I don't know how they turned the death of Stalin into a comedy, but it's a really good movie, and it it does show the horror um, of that time and that regime, and the horror of people at the top. Um, the horror of elitist action, the horror of amassing power in the hands of people that have no idea what to do with power. Um, and what I'm working toward in birthing the nation of Gaia is having one, no group of people holding that kind of power.
So is that the death of the 2017 movie Death of Stalin that
Yeah.
you were thinking? I haven't seen it.
Uh,
Has anybody here seen it?
I haven't, but I do know a little bit of details about like the power struggle after Stalin's death. There's an alternate timeline in which we could have gotten way, way worse than Khrushchev.
oh, yeah, oh, goodness gracious, yes. I mean, alternate timeline that Stalin just lived longer, you know. Um, yeah, when you look at Pol Pot, you look at first Mao and then the Gang of Four. You start looking at just about anything that's going on a day-to-day basis in Africa. Um, it is we the 20th century and now into the 21st century has been really, really grim, and we have to stop it. And
Yes.
the way that we stop it is not by shooting back. The way that we stop it is with holonic consciousness. I didn't touch on it. That's all I do is touch on that here. And maybe you'll invite me back and we'll talk more about what that would be.
So honestly, in the chapter 5 of creating a world that works for all, the story, you talk about what breaker stories and cultures look like. It's kind of like the blueprint and the template for exclusive win-lose cultures. You give a whole list there of colonial top-down um, kind of extractive
Mhm.
uh, cultures, the breaker model. And then you also give the maker and the shaper cultures that that both nurture and protect tradition, but also innovate and create holistic, egalitarian communities that share resources, that are inclusive. You give a whole list of specific guidelines. I think we need to see what is it we don't want to be, but also what it is we do want to be in really concrete, simple detail. And for many of us, we have good-hearted examples in our lives of people who really worked to help enrich the lives. They took care of themselves and then they made sure everybody else around them was taken care of too. And it was just a different way of thinking um, than the dominant culture. And I just had a friend yesterday tell me about something that my father had done for them, that my dad asked this friend of ours who was unemployed rock musician to build a rock wall. My dad didn't need a rock wall, but it would challenge this person's intellectual and physical skills and pay them to do something worthwhile. I never knew this happened. They said that was one of the most important things that ever happened to me at a time in my life when I really needed something. Your dad was thinking so far out of the box and so differently from the family that I came from. And just, didn't stepped in and made positive change. And I think we all have examples of people like that in our lives and in our world, that don't make a big to do about it, and they just see what needs to be done in these ordinary scenarios. And so I want to have a sense of gratitude for those people around us who are giving us um opportunities to step forward. And may we be those kind of people as well. But we live in a world that is so violent, and we see people coming in and bombing entire civilizations and leaving cities and communities and hospitals and homes and buildings in a mess. And it seems impossible not to respond to that and not to try to protect and then collect and reconvene. Um, war is an ugly thing. And this, if somebody can just take over, how do we stop that violence that's going on in Africa and that's going on in the Middle East and that's going on in Ukraine?
I want to share something with you to hopefully elevate that conversation, elevate it beyond humans. Okay, because if we are going to get to this new civilization, it's going to be a civilization where we, humans, are acting in partnership with all other living beings. Um, so I go to Bali whenever I've got money to do it because Bali is so beautiful. And last time I went there, I was greeted by by this. Mount Agnan decided to erupt when I got there. And for those of you who have been to Bali, you know that Mount Agnan, and I'm not pronouncing the name correctly, it's good enough for right now. It occupies a large part of the uh, the island, and all of the Westerners are freaking out. Why has this got to happen, number one, to me? Why has this got to happen during my vacation? This is terrible. All the geologists are saying this is going to be the big one. This is pent up energy. It's going to be erupting. Get off the island if you can. They're canceling flights, and I'm flying in. Okay, so so the government said that they were moving people off of the volcano and trying to move them off the island. But the government says we're allowing six holy men to go up onto the island to up on the volcano to spend the night. So they the Westerners, Western media, what is six holy men going to do to how can you can't talk to a volcano? You're not going to ask it to not erupt. They went up and they came down and they held a press conference and they said, we talked to the volcano last night and we asked it not to erupt now. And the volcano said, okay, I won't erupt now. And it said, that it was going to erupt and it gave a year. I think they said 2032, but I don't remember. Um, and he said that eruption will be twice the size of the one that you just avoided here. And you've got almost a decade to get your fecal matter together so that you'll be ready for this one because this is your one reprieve here. So they come back and they say that. And of course, all the Westerners and all the geologists are like, oh, we can ignore that because you can't talk to a volcano. The volcano eruption stopped. Over 24 hours, the lava stopped coming out of it. The eruption stopped. All the smoke that was going up 30,000 feet stopped going up. Everything goes. And the geologists are saying, well, we don't understand. I say, I understand it. They talked to the volcano. We can talk to a volcano and ask it to stop erupting. We could have talked to COVID and said, the way you exist right now is killing us, and we don't want that to happen. What we want you to do is modulate your behavior, okay? And COVID would have listened. Instead, we went right into attack mode. What did COVID do? Said, "Oh, that's is that how you want to play the game? Now we can we can attack." If we start recognizing that we have power with each other, power with ourselves, power with the forces that are above and beyond us, and power with the forces that are within us, the trillions and trillions of beings that use you like a colony. There are more than 8 billion living beings, separate living beings, right now in your mouth. I'm not talking about your gut. I'm not talking about your chest. I'm not talking about your throat, just in your mouth. Okay. Now, what do you do when they get out of line? You do what breakers do. You go in and you kill all of them. Good ones, bad ones, you don't care. You take the Pepto-Bismol if it's in your gut. You take the cough drops and the sprays if it's in your nose, if it's in your mouth, and you don't care how many you kill. You don't care that you kill the good ones. Okay. What we're doing is we're becoming relational, that I recognize I'm in a relationship with all the beings in my mouth, all the beings in my throat, all the beings in my body, and we are going to operate for the good of the whole. I'm saying that because 2 weeks ago I was laid out flat with something. One of these beings went wild, and I was sorely tempted to grab the Imodium, kill them all. And I did not. I'm very proud to say we talked it out, and I all of us are now back in a happy place.
So, Sharif, I'd like to hear from Robin, Kanye, and May, but I just wanted to say that, one of the things that I always have questions about is sort of wishful thinking. If wishes were horses, all beggars would ride, sort of that idea of just, the power of positive thinking and putting that positive spin on things. But there is this concept of systems theory that you spoke about, and evolutionary. Biology, evolutionary systems, and this idea that maybe humans aren't the apex creature of Gaia's evolving systems, that there are many, many other um, layers and levels of consciousness, seen and unseen, that are generating life and holding space on this incredible planet of rare life, rare opportunity, and fragile life. The system within your body and mine and each of our bodies is so limited in terms of what we can adapt to in order to survive. We're not going to Mars. We're not going to just trash Earth and survive out there. That's not going to happen as much as we wish it to be.
I don't even
We're
push
gonna,
it.
yeah,
This is a great planet to be on.
yeah, exactly. And even Carl Sagan says, maybe life in other parts of the universe, but we're not going there, not now. So this idea that humans are in control of the planet. Our language, our thoughts, our systems are certainly in control. We're in the age of the Anthropocene. We're in the age of humans shaping this planet through our technologies and language and consciousness. But ours is not the ultimate consciousness. And we are doing some things right now with technology, AI, humans, biology, and we're talking about this idea of silicon life forms versus the idea of these of our current biological life forms. There's just so much going on. And we are really at a crossroads, perhaps a survival crossroads. And what we call humanity may not be the same thing that we imagine now in the future if because of this crossroads.
Yep. Yep. I'm right there. I believe that there will be a new civilization on our planet. It may not be a human focused one because not enough of us are paying attention to this right now. This is the kind of thing that we should be getting tens of millions of people to come out on the streets holding up signs saying, it's time for us to evolve.
Yeah.
Uh, and to work with other beings for
Hmm.
that to happen. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll give you a very minor-ish peek at what and I'm going to give you a couple of major peaks. And if you should follow the work of Rupert Sheldrake. Rupert Sheldrake it's hard to describe what he is. I would call him a biologist, but he doesn't do the looking at life through a microscope that's been where all the life in it is killed and stained. Um, he's written a book called Dogs That Know When Their Owners Are Coming Home. Um, if you have a dog, a dog knows when you're coming home. Um, he wrote another book called The Sense of Being Stared At. How many of us have felt someone staring at them? And you turn around real quick to see who's staring at, and you see somebody looking away, like they were looking at you. You can feel it. We are that connected to each other. What we have to do is start recognizing that and actually using it. We're doing this in a sporadic kind of way. Um, uh, People have been rescuing dolphins and whales from these discarded fishing nets. And they've been doing it because they are drawn to a particular place. They feel that they have to be at this place. Um, Whales and dolphins have been rescuing humans because they know, like, if you're out there, you're surrounded by sharks, you probably need some help. And they can provide the help. What happens when we can start, like I said, doing co-evolution, where we're evolving with beings for our mutual support, our mutual food, our mutual security, our mutual love and compassion for each other. Um, there's this great video on YouTube of a baby elephant got trapped in a well, and the adult elephants got the humans to come to the well, and when they did that, they'd had to dig a path to for the baby elephant to get out. Somebody brought in a front loader to help the elephant get out. And when they rescued it, all of the adult elephants start trumpeting, and all the humans are on the other side. They're all cheering. And that is what being an intelligent being on an intelligent planet looks like. Um, we can do much, much, much more than that. If we, instead of telling beings what to do, we start asking them what we should be doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really love the example that you gave of the volcano because a lot of people, we can nod to the hummingbird effect,
Mhm.
that a hummingbird, can shape a system that affects the whole world, and that whole idea. But I think there are definitely elemental forces of life. We have there's a physicist and mathematician named Brian Swim who worked with a Catholic theologian named Thomas Berry that came up with this piece called The Great Story. And what they talked about is you have cosmic evolution where the stars flare forth and bring forth these elements. These elements congeal into stars and solar systems and this planet Earth. And then on this earth, there's a second evolution, which is the formation of the DNA. Life comes into being, plants, animals. It comes to life on this planet. And then human systems come in, human thought, human language, human systems, and that's what's reshaping the planet now. I don't know if we can see where we're going because um, we're in a system right now of, like you said, we're killing the planet. We're living beyond the resources, and it's benefiting just a few people at the top. And yay, Amazon delivers a package to my doorstep, but at the expense of what? And the who makes the profit at and who pays the expense in terms of the bill?
Yeah.
But
And
how do we attend to non-biological forms of life like elemental and mountains and indigenous cultures are able to do that, but our and I have great respect for that consciousness of Pele or of Mount Rainier. Like they feel like such ancient um presences, and the ocean itself and water itself, water of life. Um, and then the destructive forces seem equally, extreme. Coal trains and oil pipelines um, that come in and destroy whole water sheds and underground aquifers with poisons, which could happen right here in Olympia if they put that airport in. There's an ancient 10,000-year-old aquifer right under it, and all of the pollutants and poisons that are going to be keeping that airport going are going to drain into this ancient aquifer. Um, it- and so we have it's how do we come to a sense of the intelligence or the consciousness of not just more than human life forms, but of the evolving elements of the planet.
yeah, I am looking for something as fast as I can find it, and it is um, this is the problem of having a computer that I've got like five different decks in front of me right now. And it's not in any of the five that I've already uh, dealt with, but it's this one right here in front of me. And what it is something I'll invite everyone to if you wish. This is a something I've been working on called the Catalyst Meditation. Every day, a group of us meditates on our um, place in the world. And I'll read a couple of these things to you. We sit in a meditative state, and I go through this reading, and it is um, powerful for me and powerful for all of us doing this. And maybe if you come, it'll be powerful for you. First of all, we set our intentions. And one of our intentions is the universe is one, it's alive, and it's conscious. That holonic consciousness is a fundamental aspect of the universe. That we acknowledge our connection to all beings, including all humans, including all beings who thrive in the earth, on the water, in the air, and all the beings in our bodies. Um, we are one with all colony beings, and a colony being is a school of fish, a beehive. This is this is groups of beings, and you are a group of beings. Um, we blend all of these energies. So I blend all the energies of all the hives of the world, all the herds of the world, etc. I blend, I say we're in perfect physical health, harmony, and balance. And that includes emotional, relational, mental, spiritual, holonic, spatial, temporal, etc. And then I say I have maybe seven or eight different declarations. We declare that the universe is one, is alive, and is conscious. We declare that the earth and all earth beings are one. We declare that all humans are one. We declare that all humans are colony beings. We declare that Mother Earth is the ultimate governing principle. We declare that we're creating a political and economic system where all beings participate in it. All beings are in relationship with it. All beings own it. All beings benefit from it. And all beings govern it for the common good. And then we do a 10-minute meditation, and then we're done for the day. Now, all that takes about 25 minutes or so, depending on how fast I'm talking that day. But it starts to root this holonic consciousness in all beings. And when we do that, it changes us. It changes me, the person that I am. I started this a year and a half ago. And I thought I'd be doing it for about a week or so, and then somebody else will do it, or we'll skip it. So doing this, we're on our 20th month now, and I'm like, I can't believe I'm still doing this. And it is growing in us, and it's the thing that keeps me um, I was going to say sane, but that makes an assumption that I am. The thing that keeps me non-reactive when all the stuff that's going on around the world is like, yeah, this is stuff that we need to get rid of. And we'll get rid of this once we recognize that the universe is one, the earth is one, we are one, that oneness as creating a political and economic system with some attributes to it. And all of us are moving in this direction, not just Democrats, not just Republicans, not just humans. And we get to do this in a very coherent way. Um, I I just like looked up at the clock. It's a little bit after noon,
Yeah,
and so
a little. And
yeah.
we had till 12:30, so we've gone a good 30 minutes beyond our original scheduled time.
So I am uh, interested in continuing this conversation. I'm going to put the link for the Catalyst meditation in the chat as soon as, whoops, wrong one. Cancel. I hit the wrong button, which is trying to get me into the meeting, into the meditation. We just changed this to Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. So I'm going to copy this, copy. And then I'm going to type this into the chat. Um, I'm going
And
to,
how many folks usually show up for the Catalyst group?
we've got about 30 people around the country, actually around the world. I'm going to put in here 7:30 a.m. prompt, Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Yeah, and
Ta-da! And now you got it.
yeah. Well, I'm so delighted that you could be with us again today. Every couple years, you've helped us develop our leadership models. You've encouraged students, like I said, that have come to work with you and for the organization, and supported young emerging editors and writers, and through internships. So we have a long history with you, and we're all local, so we look forward to these ongoing collaborations and conversations. One of the things that I wanted us to do as a group, and I think we've run out of time, but we always open with sort of this weather report and a poem. And I don't think we have time for that, but I'd like if each person could just give voice to one thing that you took away from Sharif today to thank you for being here. And one thing that you're bringing to this work, and one thing maybe that or one thing you're taking away from this work. Um, Robin, are you able to share? I know you're having trouble with your Zoom today, but you do such thoughtful work and thinking each week. I'd love to hear from you. And May, if you're there, and Kanye, I'd like you to join us and turn your camera on and share with Sharif.
Sorry, my bad. I was just gonna say I really enjoyed how you were talking about the relationship between plants and animals, and it reminded me of a couple essays we've read before. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Thank you. And Robin is working on a just kind of a remarkable essay. And May.
I just got back from I had to be right back real quick. What was the question that is being asked?
Oh, we're just giving a takeaway for Sharif, a thank you, something that we're taking away from this work with Sharif today, or something that we're bringing into this work.
Um, I found Sharif's presentation incredibly informative, and I enjoyed it greatly. I enjoyed it greatly, and I'm definitely gonna have to like let a lot of it soak in, so to speak. But a lot of the topics that he's talked about are stuff that's kind of just been sitting on my mind passively for years. Because I haven't really had like the best growing up either, although that's less due to like societal stuff and more just due to like poverty and rough environments and stuff like that. Um, Overall, it's very just thumbs up. I'm not good with words right now.
Okay. Excellent.
Oh, may you do amazing work. Kanye, can you turn your camera on and share with us and just give a word?
Or not.
Or
Um,
not? Kanye
I
does.
can't turn my camera on right this second, but
Okay.
but I'm listening though.
Do you have any words for Sharif of your takeaways for today? Something you bring to the work?
Not right this second, but if I think of something, I'll put my 2 cents in there.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Sharif. And we will follow up with you, and I'll make that connection for you and May to have a further conversation around video editing. That could be really fun, productive work.
Speaking of video editing, I'm trying to actually find it right now. Actually finding things in my computer while my mouth is moving is really difficult. But I've got a YouTube channel for Commonway, and I've got maybe 300 or 400 videos up. Some of them long form. And a lot of the points that I made today, I mentioned over like 10 seconds, 12 global challenges. Well, I've got a couple of 2-hour videos on that. So it's a very big part of what we're doing. Um, and if you look at that, you can get a lot of infill I mean, like the 2 hours that we've been talking, you can get a lot of other support for that. I spend a lot of time talking about the two fiction books that I've written. Um, Fiction is not my main source, but for a lot of people, they when they see how this can actually work, or how I don't want it to work, it really spurs them into thinking about things in a different way. Look forward to talking with each of you at another point in time in some other way. I hope this has been meaningful for you. We will see where we go with this. Blessings to you all, and I look forward to our future connections.
Yeah. And the fiction is the Chronicles of the Upheavals. There's four, I think, four fiction, two.
There's
It's
supposed to be three. I'm
yeah,
not writing. Somebody should be writing this.
yeah.
But
But you have the two out there and they're transformative.
thank you.